This is my Uncle Dennis, and he wrote the play Montgomery the Musical, and that's on Andrew, and I'm Robin, and we're going to give an interview about it. And, yep, so I'm going to say, hey, you can.
Well, hello.
Okay.
Y'all are intimidating me.
What does freedom mean to you?
Yeah, I saw that question. It was a great question. Because I think it just has so many variables. I mean, freedom is equality. Freedom is lack of restraint, your lack of restraint. But also it's other people's freedom to be free from you, and your excesses. Property owners have freedom from each other. Usually it's a fence. So in my business, freedom really is more about justice. You have freedom as long as a society can possibly give you freedom, and you are free from police and government intervention as long as you can be, up to as maximum as it can hold out. But that's a real balance. There's a balance there, because there have to be some restrictions, or I'm going to impose on you, or you're going to impose on me. And we want to make sure that we have, peace. We don't have crime, but we want to be very careful that we're not oppressing ourselves or anybody else. Not picking a group like what's happening in Jim Crow laws and in the South and in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, where it was lynching and horror, and no black American had any right at all, period. Because a little oppression generally means total oppression. Once you're out, if there's an in and an out, if you're out, you don't have freedom. Only the people who are in have freedom, and that can be a town, that can be now in some circles, justice circles, in is being in the United States already. And out is not being in the United States already. And so that's a debate, which is, I think, about justice and about freedom, and finding the balance there is going to be, as we have seen, very difficult. And it would be great to have a Martin Luther King here to express it much better than I can express it.
Why did you decide to write a musical?
I saw that, and it said, make a musical out of the play. And what happened instead was I only made a play out of a musical. This whole thing, I was like I said, I was reading this book, a very large book about Martin Luther King's early life and his writings and sermons. And at the same time, I was writing poetry, and a poem came to me, and I wrote it down real quick, and then I grabbed my guitar, and it's like this song fell out of the sky. That was the beginning, not a play. That was
so
the
you
beginning.
started with the musical.
Yeah, and I started with one poem, which became one song, and it was only later that I thought, well, what was happening right before that, and what was happening right after that, and it became a scene, and then it became an act, and then it became two acts, and it was not first a play; it was first a song, a single song. So it was a music that became a play.
It just kind of flows like that.
It did, and I would, I'd have to, then I had to. Now the other songs, I had to wrestle with those. That was from the one song was easy. The rest of them were terrifying.
What is the process for writing your musical? I know you talked about it, but
well, I had a great instructor one time named Valerie Story. She wrote a book about writing, and she quoted another instructor who just said, write the bones. First, just write the bones. And I followed that. So I would write a sketch. I would outline it. Okay, in this scene, I want it to be a Christmas scene. And I want this to be going on. And so it was just an outline. And then later I would come back, and when I was feeling very creative, I would start writing dialogue. And dialogue, to me, is very hard. So I'd write dialogue where the people would say what was needed to get the scene from where it was supposed to start to where it was supposed to end. And then, if I didn't have something, but I knew I needed something, I would just make a note of it, like, song here. I didn't have a song.
Right.
I knew I was going to have to write a song, and that was going to be, you know, a process that I was going to start at a later date. And I would write that song, and I would stick it in there. And then I would say, well, you know, the dialogue would be better this way. And then I was going to some classes. There was a group in Atlanta called Working Title Playwrights, where you can go and you know, learn the craft of writing plays. And you're surrounded by playwrights, and we're all trying to do this thing. And I didn't know even the language of playwrights, because I didn't know what the stuff was. I just knew that I'd seen them, and I thought I could do that. And I learned about stage direction, so I started writing in stage direction, which I had not done before. You know, okay, the person walks to here, they're standing this way, they're, you know, and sort of setting the scene too. The scene is 1950s, you know, living room, or the scene is the church. But, so I just wrote down the bones first. I wrote down an outline, and then I eventually wrote down an outline of the entire 2-act play. And then, you know, on a computer, so that would be, you know, I go act 1, scene 1, and I could start filling in as much as I could with dialogue. And then if I could jump to scene 7, you know, and just start writing in dialogue. And eventually it grew and grew and grew and grew until it was, you know, massive. Too big. Until it was too big. Mm-hmm. Which is a good idea. Make it too big. Mm-hmm. And then start cutting. Cut extraneous, cut repetition. You know, cut everything that's not moving the story along or giving the audience some question, you know. And a song, I wish I could give you a good process for a song, but my songs have come from chord progressions first, and my songs have come from poems first. And I don't know which one's going to appear. Mm-hmm. You know, I sit down with my guitar, or I sit down and start writing a poem, and I don't know, I never know which one's going to attach first.
Okay, so what I found most interesting about the play was that it seemed like a remembrance of what had occurred at that time with Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement.
I personally found it very interesting to contrast my own writing style as a musician and songwriter with Judge Blackman's, and contrast the musical writing process with that of playwriting.
I found that Minerva related to Martin Luther King because they were great leaders and they both stood up for human rights.